guys, what's up? It's Katie Candy and the Droker here with another episode of From Comics to Cinema's podcast. For those of you who don't know, we are gamers on Twitch and huge comic book nerds, so you can see the links to those channels in the description of the podcast and at the end of the podcast, so be sure to drop us a follow. Now remember, you can catch the live recording of the podcast every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Candyland Discord, and the upload every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on a variety of, well, platforms that I'll talk about at the end, because it's everywhere now, and it's amazing. So I'm super excited about the podcast today, because we're kind of shying away from the typical comic book characters that, you know, either some of you know, the majority of you know, because we have done some oddballs, right? Like Peacemaker and Banshee and that sort of thing. But we are completely jumping off the Marvel and DC rails here, guys.
Yep.
And I'm super excited about it, because we will be talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and this was my jam.
Let's go.
So I'll probably be doing most of the talking or most of the word fumbling, which seems to be happening right now. So I'm like so excited about this that I don't even know where to start. So I think where we're going to start is basically the beginning, right? So for those of you who don't know who Buffy is, I highly recommend you go watch it. The series has been out and over now for quite some time. A long time. But it had 7 seasons and I loved every single season of it. What about the original movie? Okay, so the original movie doesn't really have anything to do with the series or the comics or anything like that, but the original movie is actually really good for a typical 90s movie. And it's the same premise as what the show is. So basically, you have a girl, she's a cheerleader, she's popular, she's basically in like Beverly Hills type area in Los Angeles, and she's concerned about boys and clothes and, you know, who's wearing what in Hollywood and that sort of thing, right? And then all of a sudden this English guy shows up and he's like, "Are you Buffy?" And she's like, "Hi, yes. Wait, what?" So, and he tells her that she is the chosen one, that she is the new Slayer, because into each generation a Slayer is born. She alone will stand against the demons, the vampires, and the forces of darkness. She has the power to. And yes, they totally say that in the show and kind of in the movie. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched the show. We'll maybe talk about that. But I have some really funny stories about like how much I loved this show, which we can get into in a little bit. But so he takes her to a graveyard where there is a fresh grave, and she's like, "What are we doing here?" And he's like, "We're waiting." And she's like, "What are we waiting for?" And he's like, "For Billy to wake up." And sure enough,
not weird at all.
Right? So Billy crawls out of the grave, and he's a vampire, and he goes to attack, and she fumbles her way through staking him. And that's how she kind of realizes that the world is bigger than just, you know, clothes and shoes and cheerleading. And it's funny because in the movie she burns down the gym, and they kind of pick up where they left off with that in the show. So in the movie she burns down the gym because that's where all the vampires are, and then in the show she moves to this new school. And it's really funny because like the principal rips up her basically like record. And she's like, "Oh, and she's like, he's like explaining like, we don't care. This is Sunnydale. Like, we want you to have a fresh start. Da 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 da." And he's like, "We don't care. It doesn't matter to us, even if you burn down the gym." And then he starts like taping the record back together.
Yes.
And she's like, "You don't understand. That gym was full of asbestos.
Nice.
So it's really kind of funny. And so now she's the new girl in a school at Sunnydale High in Sunnydale, California. And to the naked eye, Sunnydale, California just seems like any Southern California town, right? You've got your pretty girls, you've got your cheerleaders, you've got your jocks, and you've got your nerds. And but deep down, what you don't know until later is that Sunnydale sits on what's known as the Hellmouth. And the Hellmouth is basically where demons spawn from.
Oh, it's like a nexus.
Pretty much, yeah,
Oh, okay.
exactly,
All right.
exactly. So, she, and I'm just
Crazy.
going over basically the first 2 episodes of the entire series for you right now in like a span of 5 minutes because it's great. And if you haven't watched this show, I really hope this gets you hooked. But she meets like the super popular girl, Cordelia, and Cordelia's like, oh, here, share my book with me. If you don't have one, you can get your very own at the library. And so then she's like, Cordelia like makes her take like a little quiz to testing her cool factor, and she passes. So it seems like she's going to fit right back into the cool crowd, but then like she accidentally runs into Xander, who's kind of nerdy, and a steak falls out of her purse. And he picks it up after she like hurries up and picks her stuff up. And he's like, hey, you forgot your steak. And so when he hands it back to her like later, he's like, hey, the only thing I can think is you're building a really small fence. And she's like, oh. And she takes it and she's like, oh, thank you. We don't, everyone carries these in Los Angeles. Pepper spray is just so passe.
That's amazing. Really small fence. Like, how on the nose.
It's so good. Like, and that's the whole thing with the show is like the writings and the punchlines and the jokes are so on par. It's like completely opposite from what's a movie that we just saw that had really bad landing jokes? Oh, yes. Thor, Love and Thunder.
What do you mean?
I said it. I said it. I said it. So it just basically what the show does then it goes on and she has to battle not only like high school and, you know, dating and basically trying not to fail all of her classes because she's staying up all night trying to save the world from the forces of darkness. So then she goes off to college and all this other stuff. And it's kind of a really cool series because you see her get to grow up and go through all these trials and tribulations, not just of like the world ending kind, but of just life in general. So it's actually like if you're a teenager in high school, like, you know, junior year in high school, sophomore year in high school, it's a really good point of the show to start. Or even if you're like a senior in high school, because you can see like how she goes through it and like you face kind of the same things that she goes through, only, you know, half of them aren't demon-esque.
All right.
So it's really cool. And like she falls in love with a vampire, Angel, who...
Yeah.
So Angel was kind of cool. Angel is a cool character because his name is actually Angelus, and back in the 1800s, he fed off of a gypsy girl, and the gypsy family returned his soul to him. So what that meant was he then felt that he had murdered all of these people.
Oh man, that's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. So then he wants to he meets this demon named Whistler. Because here's the thing too, and it's kind of a cool thing in the show where they basically show that not all demons are bad. There are some demons that are just trying to like go through the world. So he meets this one demon named Whistler who's like, you can either fight for what's right, or you can, you know, eat off rats in the sewers. So then like Whistler shows him he can get blood to survive on from butcher shops and this and that. So, but what's the really crazy thing about Angel is he sired Drusilla, and Drusilla is one of my favorite vampires in the show because she is crazy. So Angel made Drusilla insane, and then he turned her into a vampire.
that's not a good formula for. Oh my goodness.
So, and then like the vampire that turned Angel, her name was Darla, and Darla
Uh-huh.
was like the right hand to the master, and the master was one of the oldest vampires on the planet, so
Yes.
old so that his hands were almost like cloven, like he really didn't have a human-esque type face anymore. It was always
Mhm.
very more demonic, and that's the big bad of the first season. And the master is a really cool character. He's a great villain. The actor that played him was fantastic.
Okay.
So Darla sired Angel. So when I say sire, that's basically means turning them into a vampire for those of you vampire noobs. So
Okay.
Darla sires Angel. Angel sires Drusilla. Drusilla sires Spike, aka William the Bloody.
Okay.
Now, Spike and Drusilla were like a terror couple.
Oh,
And
nice.
Spike was known as William the Bloody for a long time, but he got the nickname Spike because he would drive railroad spikes through his victims' heads.
So it's not just some edgy '90s blonde-haired thing. It's like legit. Like you're okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
you learn all this, and there are like some flashbacks to like when the four of them just kind of go and tear up the town, and then like um, Spike and Drusilla kind of go off because then Angel gets his soul back, and he's basically like a boring little puppy to them, and Darla leaves him, and well, he kind of leaves Darla, and Darla goes back to the master, and then Angel ends up staking Darla. Sorry, spoiler alert. In one of the episodes of Buffy, I can't remember which one it's called, but it is in the first season. So I think it's actually called Angel. I think that's the episode. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But then Spike is a cool vampire as well because he's actually killed two Slayers.
Yeah. And he ended up getting his own spinoff too. But
Yeah,
yes, and he's he's actually a really cool character. I learned a little bit about him. He seems like somebody I would really like.
yeah, he is. He is. And so the funny thing about Spike is, so in the 80s, it's rumored to have it that Spike is the influence behind why Billy Idol is dressed the way that Billy Idol is.
Oh, come on. See, that that's good because he
Mm-hmm.
does have the whole Billy Idol look.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I like that. See, that's clever writing. You write that into the show because it's so like we all see it. We're all like thinking it, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
So, and then when Buffy goes off to college, it's really cool because her and Angel have split up. She graduated. Oh, I should talk about this too. So before she goes off to college for in season 3, that's their senior year.
Okay.
So the mayor is like this big germaphobe, kind of like goody goody, and turns out he is becoming a demon. And I'm not
Oh,
talking like the little demons that she slays. I'm talking like a giant snake-like demon. So, um, and oh my God, I didn't even talk about the Scooby Gang. I'm so sorry. I just like jumped all
the
over the place.
Scooby Gang. Yeah,
Yes,
there was a Scooby Gang, like
yes.
not like event crossover. What would you call that
So the Scooby
thing?
Gang is actually the nickname that they give to themselves of Xander, Buffy, Willow, and Giles. And with
Okay.
also added on Cordelia. Cordelia ends up jumping in there, and Oz. So Willow's like very nerdy, very smart, and Buffy instantly kind of befriends her. And then
Okay.
she goes to the library, and Giles is there, and Giles is her new watcher. And he puts this big book on the on the desk in front of her because she went looking for textbooks, and he's like, I'm looking for a book, and he's like, I know exactly what book you're looking for. And she's like, you do? And she's like, I guess there's not that many new kids in town. And he slams the big book on, and it says vampire, but it's spelled like Vampyre,
Okay. Yeah.
and like
Okay.
very old text. And she's like, I'm not looking for that. And like they go into like this big tiff later because a boy is found dead in a locker and all of this other stuff. That's back in season 1. So anyway, after all of that, they become friends. They join the Scooby Gang. Cordelia, the big head cheerleader, most popular girl in the world, then starts dating Xander, and then her popularity falls through, and she's like always in these life or death circumstances because she's always trying to help save the world. So she's not like this, she's really not this like stuck up girl, even though she's totally portrayed as one, but you can tell like she
Right.
has a heart and wants to do the right thing. So and so they go through all that, and then then Buffy ends up sleeping with Angel, which gives him his one true happiness, and that makes him lose his soul. And so that's where kind of all the craziness ensues in season 2, and Angel gets sent to hell because Buffy has to like stab him through a sword. But oh, also in that episode, or not episode, but season, Buffy uses a rocket launcher. Because there's this demon called the Judge. And so the Judge, no weapon forged could defeat him. And he's like, she breaks out the rocket launcher, and they're in the mall, right? They're in the Sunnydale Mall, of all places.
Right.
And so there's this demon, and he's like, no weapon forged can defeat me. And she's like going through all the clicks on the rocket launcher. And she was like, that was then, this is now. And he's like, what's that do? And you see like Drusilla and Angel like jump away. So it's
Jeez.
yeah. And then there's like, she's like, now what do we do? And like she's going off to like find Angel to like fight him. And then she's like, pick up the pieces. And Cordelia's like, pieces? We get the pieces? Our job sucks. So it's really kind of like funny. Oh, and Willow's boyfriend, Oz, he's a werewolf because his baby cousin bit him.
His baby cousin was a werewolf, right?
Yes.
Or just a normal kid?
No.
Okay, I was like, that would make not.
No,
Just
yep.
some kid bit him and he just werewolfed.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep. Nope.
Got it.
His baby cousin was a werewolf and bit him, and then he became a werewolf. So.
Okay. Anybody else in his family werewolf, or is that just like a random? Was that just the origin story right there?
That was
Just cousin
the
and his
yeah.
family?
That was the origin
Okay.
story right there. So it's really kind of funny.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. And then so then you move on to season 3, and season 3 is one of my favorite seasons because we get the introduction of Faith, and I love Faith. And this Faith is the new Slayer because in season 2, oh yeah, in season 1, I should mention this too. Buffy dies for a split second.
Right.
The Master drowns her, and Xander is able to give her CPR and brings her back to life. But it doesn't matter how long she was dead. The fact that she was dead triggered the next Slayer's powers to come to be, and that was Kendra. And so Kendra came in season 2, but unfortunately, Drusilla kills Kendra in season 2.
This is like Game of Thrones.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. So since Kendra dies, Faith is called. And Faith ends up coming to Sunnydale because she's running from her problems because her watcher dies. And she's being chased by this big bad daddy vamp named Kakistos. Which it's funny because Buffy and Faith kill 2 of his like lackeys, minions, whatever. And she's like, the one said, you may kill us, but we live for Kakistos. Or maybe it was taquitos. Or maybe it was kissing toast. And Giles is like, Kakistos? And she's like, what? And he's like, Kakistos. And he just like runs away.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So that's where Faith comes, and Faith like freaks out because then they end up having to like fight this big daddy vamp, and she's like stressing out, like she can't do it. And Buffy's about to die, and Buffy puts a stake into him, but it doesn't go deep enough to penetrate his heart, and he's like laughing. He's like, I think you need a bigger stake, Slayer. So Faith picks up like a giant support beam and stakes him with that.
Let's go.
So, but then Faith kind of drinks the Kool-Aid a little bit and falls off the bandwagon and kills a man on accident. And it happens. They were slaying a bunch of vampires and he popped up and she actually accidentally stakes him through the heart.
Eesh.
And she tries to kind of cover it up and blame it on Buffy and that sort of thing. But Giles like knows because Buffy's freaking out about it. And that's when Faith kind of goes to the dark side and she joins the mayor. So the mayor's kind of crazy and he's got one weakness, and his one weakness is Faith because he treats her like a daughter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Faith is kind of like a daughter to the mayor. And so Buffy ends up putting Faith in a coma.
Because why not?
Well, it gets better. So, all right, I should backtrack a little bit. I feel like I'm jumping all over the place, but like this is my favorite show. So I get really excited about it and kind of
Yeah.
like scattered everywhere. So I apologize for that. But so after Faith joins the dark side, she shoots Angel with an arrow and it misses his heart. And the vampire that's with her goes, "You missed the heart." And she's like, "Meant to." Because
Ah.
the arrow was poisoned. And the only cure for the 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 only cure for the poison was the blood of a slayer.
Of course.
So, of course, and there just so happens to be two slayers.
Of course.
So, Buffy goes and hunts down Faith, and she stabs Faith with Faith's own knife. Yeah. And because the mayor got Faith this really like
Trail.
intricate knife. So she stabs Faith, and they have beaten the crap out of each other. You got two slayers going at it. Like, it's not going to end well.
Right.
And Faith jumps up because it happened on the roof of Faith's apartment building. And so Faith gets up on the edge of the building. She's like, "You did it, B. You killed me. Still won't save your boy, though." And falls off the back of the building onto a truck and, and drives away. So Faith is now in a coma in the hospital, and Buffy is left without Slayer blood, except for hers.
Her own, yeah.
So she goes, and Angel refuses to drink her blood because, like, he's like, "I love you, it'll kill you." And she's like, "Not if you don't take it all, da 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 da." Well, he keeps, like, refusing to it, so she keeps punching him and punching him and punching him until he goes all vampy, and then he bites her. And then he brings her to the hospital. And so her and Faith, because they're slayers, they have like these weird dreams where they can, it's almost prophetic, prophetic,
Yeah, prophetic.
prophetic words. So,
Yes.
so like that's when Faith tells him like human weakness, everybody's got one. And so like the knife, face knife, keeps like flashing on the bed. And that's when Buffy gets it, like Faith is his weakness. And like he was in the hospital like grieving over Faith, and like and he actually tries to smother Buffy while she's in a coma as well in the hospital, and he has to be like pulled off of her.
Oh man.
Yeah. So so they used that against him. They ended up stacking the library of the school with a bunch of dynamite and blow him up. Yeah, because he turns into a giant snake demon. Like a giant snake demon.
This sounds like, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but this sounds like a way more advanced like Power Rangers plot.
Probably. Like, I'm only giving you
Like
like
way
the,
more intricate, yeah.
like the very like skin and bones details because we're already 25 minutes into this podcast.
It's like there's friends, they're not friends, there's betrayal, there's power transferring, there's all this like crazy like okay, I can see why people were so attracted to the show
Yeah,
now. I get it. I get it.
It's so good. And like
Okay.
so they go off to college. Angel goes to Los Angeles. Him and Buffy aren't together anymore. So Buffy goes off to college, and the government has started hunting demons.
Because why not?
Like, she goes to Sunnydale High, or not Sunnydale High, Sunnydale University. Basically, like the University of Southern California, Sunnydale, right?
Okay.
So the government is basically hunting down demons, and they're taking different parts of these demons and building like a cyborg.
I was just gonna say they're probably harvesting power or something. Yep, there you go.
And they called him Adam. And Buffy's psychology professor is the one who's doing all of this. And
This
Buffy's
absolutely has Joss Whedon written all over it.
and then Buffy's TA for that class and then later boyfriend is also one of the what they call the commando guys. So,
All right.
like, and it was funny because like they're trying to keep their secret identities from each other, right? And
Of course,
of
naturally.
course, right. So like they're walking through the like park one time and a woman screams and they're like, gotta go. And like they both run off to it. And it's like funny because like Buffy's talking to Willow about it. She's like, how do I like say like I always end up having to like leave to go like fight vampires or something. Like, how do I say, by the way, I am the Slayer? And then he's talking to one of his commandos about it. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know how to say, like, I hunt demons for the government type deal, right? And it's so funny because, like, they don't know that the other one, like, the other alternate identity exists.
Hmm.
So then when the episode that they find out is probably one of my absolute favorite episodes. It's called Hush. And there is no words being spoken. It's nothing but like eerie music because all of their voices get stolen.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a really good episode. It's season 4. It's called Hush. Even if like that's the only one you want to watch, like it's one of my favorites. It's really good. And so it's funny because they're both out like trying to figure out what's going on, right? And they end up Riley ends up fighting like these little henchmen type deal of the gentleman, and Buffy's comes like crashing through the window and they end up like each pointing their weapons at each other. So his is like a blaster and hers is a crossbow. And they're just like standing there and then they're like, yo, what? So it's really
I
good.
missed all this.
It's really good. And so the episode after is even better because like before that episode, right before that episode ends, it's like they're both sitting in the dorm room and she's like, I guess we need to talk. He's like, I guess we do. And so it's really funny because on the next episode, she's like, someone should say something before one of us graduates. And he's like, what are you? And she's like, Aquarius on the cusp of Capricorn or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, not what are you? Who are you? And she's like, I thought you would have figured it out by now. I'm the Slayer. And he's like, what? And she's like, Slayer. Look it up. Slayer, comma, the. So it's really good. So that's when they kind of find out who each other is, and like he brings her to Professor Walsh and she's like, we thought you were a myth. And she was like, well then you were mistaken. And like no one laughed. They don't laugh. And she's like, and
That's
so
a B joke.
it's 100% a B joke. But it's so good because then she kind of gets involved with the initiative, and Professor Walsh then tries to kill her. And she sends like 2 demons after Buffy with a faulty blaster. And she's wearing like this video recording device with a heart monitor. And it's like recording everything. And so all of a sudden, like the heart monitor goes, right? And the camera's on the ground. And Riley is standing right there. And Professor Walsh is like, oh my God, Riley, I couldn't stop her. She decided to go. And then all of a sudden she picks up the camera and she's like, Professor Walsh, if you really thought that's what it would take to kill me, you have no idea what a Slayer is. But believe me, I'm about to show you.
Nice.
And it's so good. So, and like, I feel like, I don't know if this is exactly what you wanted to talk about for the podcast, but I feel like I'm just going over season by season, just because.
This is what we're here. This is what we're talking about. This is literally because this is canonical, whatever. Because this is what matters. Because everything that was in the comics before this was technically Elseworld.
Right. It's basically now considered Buffy the Vampire Slayer classic.
Right. Yeah. It's like all the Star Wars stuff when Disney acquired Marvel, all the comic book stuff from Star Wars was considered like classic Star Wars.
Right.
Like, didn't really absorb. Well, anyway, different topic for different day.
I love too that right as you were talking about all of that, a Twitch subscription or not a follow came into play. It just submit.
Let's go.
So thank you for whoever that was.
Crazy. craziness.
Yeah.
Man.
And then, so she ends up, of course, having to fight Adam and ends up winning, which Adam is super powerful and
That was
everything.
the government demon, right?
Yeah, that was the government
Okay.
demon. And he's kind of crazy because when he actually ends up killing Professor Walsh and kind
Oh
of,
shit. Okay.
yeah, going on a rampage and trying to create more super soldiers like him. And he does create one. So, and
Oh, it's a Bane demon with a purpose. Got it.
yeah,
Understood.
yeah, yeah. And it's really cool because with that episode, Willow's a witch. She ends up being a witch,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, but they end up having to do like this crazy spell, and it takes all of their powers. Like Willow, Xander, and Giles all kind of sit together and do this incantation that transfers like basically more superpowers to Buffy. And that's how Buffy is actually able to defeat Adam because he's got like a plutonium core or something like that. I don't think it's
Okay.
plutonium. Maybe it's polonium, something like that, inside of him, and that's what's allowing him to run. So she basically pulls that out and then turns it into doves because of
Oh, because
because of the
yeah, I get it.
yeah,
I get it. That's I get it. I get the whole. Okay, makes sense.
yeah.
All right, fair enough.
It's kind of crazy. And then season 5 kind of throws you for a loop in the very first episode because not only does she fight Dracula. Oh yeah.
The Dracula, but in this universe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because Dracula makes Xander basically like his Renfield. And at one point, like, Xander's like, "You'll never beat the Dark Master." And everyone kind of stares at him and he's like, "Bader."
Jeez, this is. See, I can see why the writing. Yeah, I see why now. I see
Hmm.
why now. I get it.
Yeah, it's
I
good.
get it.
And then this one kind of throws you for the loop too, this season, season 5, because Buffy was always known as being an only child.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden she has a younger sister named Dawn.
Man, these names are like so 90s.
Oh yeah, right?
All right.
So 90s. Um, so yeah, so she has a sister named Dawn who's actually not necessarily her actual she is her sister, but she's not because a bunch of monks created her because she's actually the key to opening a dimension to another world where a god named Glory is from. And so
Glory or glorious?
Glory.
Okay.
Well, they call her the glorious one,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
but she goes by Glory and she's very much like Cordelia, only blonde and kind of meaner because she's a god, and when she gets stressed out she puts her hands in people and makes them go crazy.
Because God's actually no, yeah, they do that in the Marvel universe too. Yeah, never mind. Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of wild, right? So you got that going on, and then you've so Buffy then has to fight a god, and that's kind of really crazy. And that's the season where Buffy dies.
Right.
So because it was Summer's blood, well, they said it was Dawn's blood that was needed to. Dawn's blood opened the portal. Dawn's blood had to close the portal, but it wasn't necessarily Dawn's blood. It was Summer's blood because she was actually her sister. They took the key, put it in human form, basically gave her sibling type DNA, if you think about it. And so that's why it was Summer's blood. So Buffy jumps into the portal and dies. And it was crazy. Like, I used to watch these when they aired with one of my friends, and like she was like bawling.
I was like losing it, right?
Yeah, she was like, "Oh my god."
That is freaking nuts, man. I'm gonna have to get caught up on that now. 'Cause
Yeah.
that sounds something like right up my alley that I would like. I don't know why I've been sleeping on that.
I don't know. The show's really cool. Season 6 wasn't like my favorite season at all because
Hmm.
Buffy really struggles in that season. Her mother dies. she is left to like fend for herself. She comes back from the oh wait, okay, her mother dies in season 5. And then, you know, Buffy dies in season 5. And then Buffy is brought back to life. And everyone thought she was stuck in some sort of hell dimension. But it turns out she was actually in heaven.
Oh yeah, thanks guys.
Yeah. So um, she comes back and is a little messed up in the head because, like, and it's funny because, look, I know you don't like musicals,
No,
but there is a musical episode.
of course there is.
And it's
Why
real.
wouldn't there be?
It's really good.
Oh my god.
So it's that season's a tough one to watch because you see her struggle more as like an adult who was dead and
And
then
isn't that the season she gets weaker, like power wise, because she's going through all the internal conflict?
yeah so
Because like
she
that's based off of her like not like just necessarily her emotion, but like her well being, like
yeah
how like well she's living her life. Her powers are based off like that strength of how her powers are based off of
pretty
Slayers.
much
Well, not just hers, but any Slayers.
it's basically and like they need to like focus it's really so it's not so much that it's their focus like
Okay.
the more
Okay.
focused they are like the stronger they are
Okay.
and because she's kind
How's
of
that?
like in a tizzy like she ends up
Uh,
banging Spike a lot and
okay.
yeah like there's all kind of like crazy things that happen and then you've got this like ragtag criminal gang that like wants to take Buffy down and they're just like a bunch
She's a
of
rogue gallery?
she's basically got like they were essentially like Dungeons and Dragons players.
Yeah. She has a rogue gallery. Let's go. That's awesome. Dastardly and devious. Yeah.
Anyway, so they want to like kill her and they go through like a bunch of bumbling things and they actually just like end up making her life kind of miserable, but they right? And then one of them shoots Willow's girlfriend because now
Oh.
yeah. And so Willow then kind of loses her mind and taps into the dark magic.
Oh, like the Darkhold.
Very much.
Let's go.
Like
Corrupter.
her hair goes from red to black
See, yep.
and her eyes turn black. And she skins a man alive.
Well, okay, Harley Quinn, calm down.
Like it's very much like she snaps her fingers and it happens.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
I think I just fell in love.
so then basically the big bad that season is Willow.
Oh, okay. So she becomes
Mhm.
she's like the Scarlet Witch of
Mhm.
okay. All right.
It's actually it's more in tune if you think about it, it's more in tune to the Dark Phoenix.
Oh, that's scarier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like everyone always jokes about like the X-Men Dark Phoenix saga that was one movie
Mhm.
and terrible. Buffy
Mhm.
actually did the Dark Phoenix story better, not as the Dark Phoenix.
Take that, early Marvel.
So there's that. And then season 7 is really cool because that's when the first evil decides it wants to take over the world.
I read something about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the first evil, it came to be in one of the early seasons of Buffy, but it wasn't too involved, but we were introduced to it then. And
Okay.
so the first evil is basically an entity, is the only way to describe it. But it unleashes the pure blood vampires, not the mixed blood, which is everything that Buffy has been dealing with. And the only way to defeat the pure blood vampires is sunlight.
Oh, that's it. No, no garlic, no steak, no silver,
No.
or not. Well, was silver even a thing in Buffy, or was that like just
No. So
okay?
for Buffy, it was decapitation, wooden
Okay.
stake, holy water, and sunlight.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was and crosses. Crosses would keep them away, and holy water would keep them away. If they ingested holy water, however, they would burn from the inside out. Because
Well,
that happened on an episode.
Nice. Put it in a bottle of tequila, trick him,
uh,
call it a day.
she put it in some water because she had to go when she was an active, like, when I say active Slayer, I mean working for the Watchers Council.
Okay. Yeah.
So she had to go through a number of different trials, and one of them, Giles had to make her weaker. And so he was secretly, like, kind of drugging her, and she was losing her powers. And so,
Oh, that's twisted.
yeah, well, it's the more twisted part about it is every Slayer who, if they reached the age of 18, had to undergo this trial. And that was
Right.
a big if,
Right.
because not many did.
No.
So they had to undergo this trial where they lost their powers and they had to fight a psychotic vampire.
Well, that's fair.
Right. Only it was supposed to be like this contained experiment, and then of course the contained experiment gets loose
Blows
and
out in the open, yeah.
kidnaps Buffy's mom, and you know.
Drags everybody into the whole conflict.
Right.
Right.
And so Giles, her watcher, always he basically felt like Buffy was a daughter to him, much like the mayor thought that Faith was a daughter to him. And so Giles goes to help and all this stuff. And when it's all said and done, and Buffy slips the holy water into the psychotic vampire's water because he has to take pills to stop a headache. Like, he gets horrible headaches. That's how she gets them. But after that's all said and done, the head guy of the Watchers Council comes and was like, it's not just a trial for the Slayer, it's also for the Watcher. She passed, you didn't.
Ooh.
Because he helped her. And
I like that.
And like, the Watcher's not supposed to help, even though Giles has helped many times, and Giles has had like 7 concussions. He literally gets he has maybe had more because he gets knocked out at least once a season.
I don't remember my name, but I'm okay. Jeez.
Yeah. So and then in order to defeat the first, they have to do a spell that basically makes every potential Slayer in the world actually have the Slayer's powers.
Right, because before Buffy Summers, there was usually only one Slayer at a time.
Correct.
And she like awakened something or did something or refused something. I'm not really sure the terminology was used.
So she died but came back to life.
Okay, yeah, okay. So they called that something else in the thing I was reading. Okay, that makes way more sense because they called it like an I don't even know what they called it. It was some weird word. That makes sense. Okay.
That's how we got Kendra, and then Kendra died, and then we got Faith. So, and then Faith went to jail and then broke out of jail after
then the Council of the Watchers is actually descendants of the first council that like summoned the first Slayer.
That created the first Slayer.
It created the first Slayer, not summoned.
So, and that's and Buffy goes and meets the first Slayer in, I think, season 5 or season 4. I can't remember which. I think it was season 4, maybe season 5. Anyway, so she finds out how the first Slayer came to be, and it's basically like she wasn't born with these powers or anything like that. A group of men decided that this one random girl would be the one, and so that's how it came to be. She didn't choose it, it was chosen for her.
Yeah, there's always like a Watcher Slayer setup. Like there's always like one Watcher watching over training, watching over. It's kind of an on the nose name, but they have like it's like a master apprentice kind of thing.
It is. And it's funny because like when Giles is explaining it, he's like, because when Buffy first moves to Sunnydale, she's like, I have an idea. You fight him. And he's like, but I haven't the skill. A Slayer slays. And the Watcher, and she's like, watches?
I like that.
Yeah. So it's pretty good. But, so they call upon the power of the Slayer into every potential Slayer in the world. And that's kind of then how it stems off. And then you have season.
Awakens them. Okay.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see that they're able to pass the power on to all potentials. So it's no longer just one girl in all the world, which after season 2, it wasn't really just or after season 1, it wasn't one girl in all the world anymore.
Right.
So I feel like I have talked a lot.
No, hey, you got me brushed up on the seasons. I'm actually that was actually cool.
Yeah, so
That's crazy.
it's a great show because it is something that like a lot of people can relate to,
Hmm.
even though it's like supernatural causes and stuff, but you're still going through all of that jazz.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, it takes it's. I mean, your protagonist, yeah, protagonist
Hmm.
is a what like a teenager female, basically a young teenager into a young woman
Yeah.
hood. So like it's gonna have those tropes and those things, and like especially being in LA, you're gonna have all that kind of jazz. But like I mentioned earlier, I thought it was really cool that like Slayers are just humans. Like think Luke Cage. They're like humans still, but they're like super strong,
Hmm.
durable, fast, all
Hmm.
this kind of stuff. But they're still very much human. They drown. They can
Yep.
they can get poisoned.
They can.
Um, they're not like impervious to like all these things. And then
No.
their strength is also meta. It's metaphysical. It's not like they're not denser. They can still swim.
Hmm.
They're not like rocks. It's not like the Thing, like Ben Grimm or anything like that. So like it's yeah, like they're not just like dense. They're just it's I got this almost like magical thing going on with them, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's yeah. So they're super strong, but they are still mortal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a thing.
They just have like they can heal faster,
Hmm.
right? And they have like almost like spider senses, but
Yes,
not quite.
they're like
So
Slayer senses.
yeah, they've got Slayer senses. Um, which like at one, she does make a Spider-Man reference. She's like, my Spidey senses tingling.
Uh,
Like there's a lot of like pop culture references in the show, which I think are great.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it is a mantle. Again, we've talked about it time and time again on the podcast. It's a mantle that is passed
Hmm.
on, like McKatie's mentioned. It is not just one meant to be one. Well, it was meant to be one, but then after this what happened in the show kind of blew it wide open. There is comics. It ran from '98 to 2018
Hmm.
in Dark Horse, and then 2019 got picked up by Boom Comics, and
Hmm.
I think it's still running to this day.
Dark Horse picked it back up.
Okay, so Dark Horse
Hmm.
picked it back up. Okay, so
Hmm.
they've got it again, which is kind of cool because they kind of started it to begin with.
Hmm.
So if you guys want to read all that, there's some really cool story arcs. There's I don't know if I don't know if it happened in the show, but she picked up basically what was equivalent to Mjolnir.
Yeah.
Some was like some troll's hammer, but like it was basically that universe's Mjolnir, and she picked it up. And Angel couldn't do it, but she did it. She was like, ah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
And
it's gonna be yeah,
that's
that's really
the
cool to me.
second troll she fights.
Yeah.
Which one of them, one of the trolls, so Anyanka, aka Anya in the show, was a vengeance demon and then lost her powers and just became like a regular girl. And they end up having to fight a troll who used to be one of Anya's ex-boyfriends,
Of
but
course, right.
she turned him into a troll.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh man, of course it was produced by, or well, was it directed or produced? I forget. It was produced by Joss Whedon,
Yes.
which if you guys don't know who Joss Whedon is, you've been living under a rock. I don't know what to tell you. That's so like that's why it has his like when you're hearing the story, like it has his like little quips and stuff written all over it. David Greenwalt was also involved. If you guys don't know, he did Grimm as well
Hmm. And
on
you can
NBC.
see, like, I
Right.
watched a little bit of Grimm, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
parallels.
Yeah. What's her name? There was some lady. What was her name? Fran Rubel Kuzi. She also worked on it, but she's tied to an interesting movie, Orgasmo, which is it's a Trey Parker, Matt Stone superhero movie, where the superhero's main power is to give
Mm.
orgasms. So funny that you go from Buffy to Orgasmo, but hey, still technically like in a comic book superpower kind of world is. But hey, kudos to you because that is a hilarious movie. You guys haven't seen it. So yeah, these people have gone on and done great things. I mean, it's spawned some pretty cool like a universe. And there's an entire college. I found this out.
Hmm.
There's curriculums written about Buffy, and they talk about like philosophy
Hmm.
and like feminism and like vampirism and like writing. Apparently, the show's writing was really good, and they use that as an example for good. Like, so this show was not only just a good show, but like it was good. Like every aspect of it spawned like a whole universe, basically. So that's really cool, man.
It's
There's, I mean, it's crazy.
and like I liked it, and Faith was one of my favorite characters. That, listen, it may or may not have started my like love of cosplay, because I may or may not
Mm.
have dressed up as Faith, and my friend may or may not have dressed up as Buffy, and we may or may not have fought for pretend.
No, okay. You definitely did.
All right, it
You,
did. It
you
happened.
definitely did. Don't even may or may not mean you definitely did.
I'm not saying that Mama Candy is currently looking for those pictures, but she might be.
I was gonna say, is there pictures? I would love to see those. Also, fun trivia fact: first 3 seasons of the high school that I was filmed at, same high school that 90210 was
Mm-hmm.
filmed at. So it definitely had. That's why it had. That's people always said like kind of had that like Hollywoody feel. Now I kind of now I get why, because that was a famous. I didn't watch 90210, but a lot of people did.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. It was a popular show, man. It was, and it's there's, I mean, literally, there's the wiki just goes on and 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 on. There's so
You
much to read.
you used a wiki for this?
There's 4 wikis.
Listen, I'm not gonna say either that I have the Buffy monster book,
Let's go.
because I totally do, and then I also have some figurines and action figures
Okay,
and
respect.
the Sunnydale High yearbook and the musical book, like with all the songs.
Okay, let's go. Super fan.
Super,
I see
yeah,
you.
yeah. And when I was at Comic Con in New York, when I was Black Canary, I asked someone cosplaying as Buffy to stake me, and she kind of looked at me weird, and I was like, not a true fan.
Disappointment I'm experiencing right now. Yeah, the comics look really good. There's it's a lot of comics, so there's
Hmm.
a lot of different art styles. I'm sure you guys can find something you like. I don't know if I'm going to get into the comics like that, but I'm sure I'll read
there's
some other blah.
there's
I'm sure.
one thing I didn't like in the comics, and so Xander and Dawn had like this very much like brother sister relationship, even though Dawn had like a huge crush on Xander,
Okay.
and then they end up getting together in the comics.
Okay. So it kind of ruins that whole
And I was not a fan of that. That's when I was
headcanon
like,
thing you had going on. Yeah. All
yeah.
right. I feel that. I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, I was not a fan of that.
I can see that. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, especially when you really like a character, or like a character's arc, or like where their story's going, and they do like a little 90-degree turn on you. You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
where'd that come from? But yeah, they're just, I don't know. They're like, Slayers are like the Batman of the vampire universe. They're just people with like, who are just really tough. And the other thing I found really funny is that they have to train. If they don't
Yes.
train, they're not really good fighters. Like they're not just
Yes.
endowed with like kung fu knowledge like the Matrix. Like they actually have to. That's why they have watchers. They have to train. They have. In
And
fact, Buffy's told to train day and night constantly.
you can see that
Yeah.
because you can see the vast difference between Buffy and Faith.
Okay.
So, because Faith never kind of really wanted to train, that sort of thing, and then when she gets hooked, when she kind of goes to the dark side and gets hooked up with the mayor, she doesn't train, and Buffy continues to train. And so
Okay.
that's kind of essentially why Buffy's able to beat her.
Because she continues to train.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. I thought that was really cool because like it's not just like it wasn't just a plot device. Just oh they're super powerful and they just boom know how to fight. Superman. And so they actually had to train and
Hmm.
actually be trained,
And,
which
and
you know
they go through like and it's like not just like fighting training. There's mental training too, where there's like
correct.
crystals involved and all kinds of things. So they do go through like a whole lot of stuff.
All right. Fan casting for a new Buffy. I like this question.
Oh,
For if they did a mod, because wasn't there a talk of a reboot or some kind of
there
restart or
was.
something
And then that kind of
fizzled?
yeah, because like they did the Charm reboot,
Right. Yeah, oh my god, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. They
and
did.
I was not a fan of that.
I forgot about that. I didn't watch it.
I don't. It's
Was
not.
it COVID that killed it, or what happened with that one?
I think it just killed it.
Uh, Sony? Is that what we're referring to now? Is that
I just
it shall who not be named?
I no, I mean like I think the show just I don't think it
Oh, it just killed itself.
yeah.
No, okay, it just never, because I know there was also an animated series that was supposed to spawn shortly after Buffy, was off air with all the original cast. Fox was gonna pick it up, most of the
Mm-hmm.
original actors were gonna come back, and then it got in, like, maybe pre-production, and then nothing
No,
ever happened
yeah,
to it.
no, and that seems to be kind of the thing, and you know what? I don't know if I would necessarily want a reboot of
Okay.
this show because the way that some reboots have gone lately is I think it would take away from what the show was or and still is for many of the fans today.
So why not, like, maybe just would you rather have, like, a continuance? Like, it's maybe, like, in modern day times, just like a modern Buffy,
Like
like, not necessarily a reboot, just like, not
honestly,
calling it Buffy, maybe a new Slayer show?
yeah, like I would totally be down
Okay.
for a new Slayer show where they pick up, one of the other Slayers and now there's like a world full of Slayers. So
Okay.
what's going on, you
Oh.
know?
Oh, and are we gonna get like Jedi Buffy like communing with the new? Or maybe well, no, because she was still technically she'd be like an old lady, right?
Yeah.
I mean that respectfully, by the way. I don't
Not
mean
like an old lady, but like
right, but
old for
yeah,
a
'cause
Slayer.
Slayers are typically young, is which
I
is what
mean,
I'm referring to.
when she was like 20, when I forget how old she was in the show, but she was like, yeah, I'm like a senior citizen.
Yeah, because Slayers they're young when they start.
And
It's like
they
puberty,
die, and a lot of them end up
die young.
dying young.
Yeah, there's a comic
So,
panel where like it shows you the history of the Slayers, and they're all young women.
mhm,
So crazy.
it is. And like the first actually in season 7, the first was going around and killing all of the potential Slayers.
Right, 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 right.
So they that's how they all kind of a lot of them came to Buffy for protection.
Okay.
So but yeah, I don't think I would be down for a reboot, but like a continuation into how everything has changed, with a bunch of Slayers running around and like a new Scooby Gang to be formed.
Yeah, yeah, just like an update maybe.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that would be really cool. I would be totally down for that. With like maybe some like appearances of Buffy and like the rest of the gang.
Yeah, that was that. Yeah, so that's it's and it's cool. Like I said, this was I knew nothing about. I've stayed away from Buffy universe. It never interested me. But I got to be honest with you, I completely mislabeled it. I just figured it was like some teen drama. I didn't know it was like this.
Yeah, it's really not. And I think
So
that's the misconception that a lot of people have because it was on what was then the WB before it was the CW.
the CW,
Well, and
correct?
even before it was the CW, it was like UPN or something. So it was
Yeah,
the
correct. Yeah. Oh
WB.
my god,
Yeah.
UPS 44 was
Yeah.
the
Like for me, it was UPN 19.
I remember that.
So, and
Oh,
then it was,
memory unlocked.
oh, I know. I think we just dated ourselves.
Oh man. Anyway, yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm. So, yeah, so it is actually technically, or it was a WB property. I don't know if it still is or not.
Oh, we got yeah. Well, it may not be for much longer because what is it, Legendary Gate or whatever
Oh
is
yeah,
fleeing the coop with their properties from WB. So we'll see what's going on with that.
yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they're like we're taking Godzilla and we're taking Dune and later nerds, which is gonna affect multiverses because they were supposed to
Mm-hmm.
have the Dune characters in there.
Mm-hmm. Guess not so much
Rip,
anymore. I feel like I talked so much in this
dude.
episode.
Good. That was a good one.
But I could go on and on and on and on.
Hmm.
So I am going to stop. But if
Yeah.
anybody wants to ask me anything about Buffy, you can always ask me on stream, in Discord, on Twitter, whatever, and I will chat you up. Believe you me. But Drucker, do you have anything else you want to add?
I am probably gonna go on Hoopla, read some issues. I'm probably gonna throw it on my TV and have it on in the background now because I need something else to watch besides Breaking Bad and Breaking and Better Call Saul. I've been watching that just an insane amount lately, so probably need a break from that.
They're really good. The episodes I think are like 42 to 45 minutes a piece.
Oh, okay. I like that. I'm a big fan of the 45-minute episode thing. A lot of people aren't. I think 30 minutes is not long enough. I think an hour is too long.
Yeah, so it was an hour, of course, on
Right. With
TV,
commercials.
but with
Yeah.
commercials.
I
So,
love it. I
yeah.
love it. I love that yeah, because that always feels so much better to watch without the commercials.
And yeah, you'll have to let me know how you like it, what you didn't like
I
of it.
will.
And there's some things that I left out because I don't want to spoil them for people.
Hey,
I know, because there's some really good parts.
got some stuff to look forward to. Let's go.
So, but that's all that we've got for this week's episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer on From Comics to Cinemas. Thank you guys so much for watching. We do appreciate it. Remember, you can catch the live recording of the show every 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Candyland Discord, and you can catch the upload every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Big Inhale now, because we're on so many platforms and I love it. Anchor,
Let's go.
Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and now Amazon. Hey
And
yo!
potentially soon, maybe Twitter.
Exactly. So, super crazy. Cannot wait for it. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Later.
Bye.